Huyay ibn Akhtab, the leader of the Jewish tribe Banu Nadir, who was recently exiled from Medina, started conspiring with other Jewish leaders. Huyay left with a delegation from Mecca to hold a highly secret meeting with the leaders of Quraysh. Huyay's goal was to convince Quraysh and their allies to wipe out the Muslims once and for all.
يا زعيم قريش، إن محمد يشكل خطرا من العالم العربي، نحتاج أن نفعل شيئا به.
لقد ذهب إلى يثرب مع سرنا. ماذا تقترح علينا نفعل؟ حاولنا التخلص منه في معركة بدر ولكن فشلنا.
وأيضا قبيلتي بني نضير وقريش لمهاجمتهم.
عجبتني الخطة وأعتقد أنها ستنجح. سعدنا لخدمتكم.
Quraysh and the Jews chose to unify with all the Arab tribes they could find and attack the Muslims, sparing no one. Quraysh wanted revenge after they cowardly turned away from the Battle of Badr. Heading for Medina, they were joined by more and more tribes along the way. The enemies moved toward what they believed to be certain victory and an end to the threats against their respective religions in power.
Allah says in the Quran in Surah Al-Ahzab, ayah 14,
ولو دخلت عليهم من أقطارها ثم سئلوا الفتنة لأتوها وما تلبثوا بها إلا يسيرا.
Fortunately, the Prophet did learn of their approach and promptly called for a meeting to determine how to face this extremely dangerous situation. Given the fact that mountains, palm groves, and lava rock beds naturally protected Medina from almost all sides, this only left the northern valley point accessible.
يا رسول الله، في بلاد فارس كنا نحفر الخنادق في الحروب لإيقاف العدو، فما رأيك أن نحفر الخندق؟
Since this was something totally unexpected by the Arabs and likely to provide protection to the city, it was unanimously accepted and its construction was immediately started. It was not easy work, especially since food in Medina was very scarce. The believers tied slabs of rock to their stomachs to prevent the hunger pains. The Prophet had 2 slabs tied to his stomach. Seeing the Prophet in such a state, Jabir ibn Abdullah went home to ask his wife.
زوجتي، هل يوجد لدينا طعام؟
لدينا بعض الشعير وماعز صغير. Then he slaughtered a goat.
لقد ذبحت الماعز. اطبخيه من فضلك يا زوجتي.
نعم.
Then Jabir went to the Prophet and said,
يا رسول الله، هل تستطيع أن تأتي إلى بيتي؟ زوجتي أعدت طعاما لك.
After all the hard work, the Prophet invited all the Muslims to eat at Jabir's home.
هيا إلى الطعام!
هيا إلى الطعام!
After inquiring how much food Jabir had, the Prophet instructed Jabir to tell his wife not to remove the bread from the oven or the goat from the pot, whereupon the Prophet invited all the workers at the trench to eat at Jabir's home. Very worried about this, Jabir hurried and mentioned this to his wife. Upon discovering that the Prophet knew how much food they had, she faithfully reassured her husband. Miraculously, even after everyone ate their fill, there was still so much food left over that Jabir's wife was even able to share with others. Another time during these days of hunger, a girl was carrying a bag of dates to her father. The Prophet told her to give him the handful of dates, then scattered them over a cloth. He then requested the cloth to be spread out on the ground. Again, miraculously, the number of dates increased until all had their fill, and there were still many dates on the cloth.
يا رسول الله، هناك في صخرة كبيرة لا نستطيع كسرها، هل بإمكانك أن تساعدنا؟
One day, while the Muslims were digging, they encountered a massive rock that no one could budge or break with their picks. Responding to the request of his assistants, the Prophet stepped up to the boulder and swung at it with his pick. With the first strike, sparks flew, and he declared that the Roman Empire was his. Upon his second strike, he prophesied the accusation of the Persian Empire. Finally, on the third strike, he announced Yemen's future in Islam, and the mighty rock was reduced to less than rubble.
ماذا نستطيع أن نفعل؟ كنا في هذه الحالة من مدة أسابيع. ماذا لو نستطيع اختراق الخندق بمجموعة من الفرسان؟ نعم، إنها فكرة جيدة.
One night, when a rumor circulated of a possible attack by the Banu Qurayda, the Prophet was forced to send back 2 units totaling 500 men to guard Medina. The day came when the kuffar arrived. Sometimes the attempted assaults made by the kuffar preoccupied the Muslims so much that they couldn't even make their prayers on time. This was extremely irritating to the believers who hated to miss their prayers. This battle of the minds went on for days and then weeks, but the Muslims held fast to their faith and purpose, believing in the promise of victory from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was not long before rumor of this betrayal reached the Prophet. Amazingly, when the Prophet heard this very disconcerting news, that there existed the potential of all Muslims being slaughtered within a few days, his response was, "God is supreme. Rejoice, you Muslims, for the end will be a happy one."
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة يا محمد هيا تعالوا انظر هيا لقد هيا لقد يا قبل معلن هيا لقد من يقاتلني؟
Huyay snuck over the trench to meet with one of the Jewish leaders living in Medina. Ka'b chose to side with Banu Nadir, though he didn't want to in the beginning, but Huyay convinced Ka'b to betray the Muslims.
Allah says in the Quran in Surah Al-Ahzab, ayah number 12,
وإذ يقول المنافقون والذين في قلوبهم مرض ما وعدنا الله ورسوله إلا غرورا.
and when the hypocrites and those in whose hearts is a disease said, Allah and His Messenger promised us nothing but delusion. Another night, a Jew from the Banu Qurayza was sneaking around where the Muslim women and children were staying. The Prophet's aunt, Safiya bint Abdul Muttalib, spotted him. Recognizing that this member of their avowed enemy could only have malicious intent,
يا حسان بن ثابت اذهب واقتل ذلك اليهودي قبل أن يقتل الأولاد والنساء.
من؟ لا أريد أن أقتله. اذهبي واجعلي أحدا غيري أن يقتله.
So she took a piece of wood that she used like a club and killed him. This courageous act deterred any future covert attempts by the Banu Qurayza against the women and children.
Allah says in the Quran in Surah Al-Ahzab, ayah 9,
يا أيها الذين آمنوا اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ جاءتكم جنود فأرسلنا عليهم ريحا وجنودا لم تروها وكان الله بما تعملون بصيرا.
O you who believe, remember Allah's favor to you, when there came against you hosts, and we sent against them a wind and forces that you saw not, and Allah is ever all seer of what you do.